everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life discussion. During our weekly episodes, we explore this intersection of spirituality and psychology, and as a result, we capture timeless wisdom contained in both fields. I'm your host. My name is Marcia Trajano, and I'm just so excited to have with me Marluce Hens, and she's speaking to me from Brazil. Hi, Marluce. How are you doing?
Hi, Marcia. Fine, thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you in this.
Awesome. Yes. So, for those of you who do not know Marluce, she is a psychologist, Jungian analyst, and a member of the Jungian Institute of Rio Grande do Sul. That's the very southern tip of Brazil. And she's also a member of the Brazilian Jungian Association, is known as AJB, and the International Association for Analytical Psychology. She holds a postgraduate degree in Jungian clinical psychology, and she's also a member of the Psychology and Spiritism group of Amex and AMI Brazil. Marluce also is amazing because she collaborates in the study of what we do today, right? Which is understand a little bit more about Joanna de Angelis and the amazing works contained in the psychological series. And she does that at AMI Brazil, at the also in partnership with the Brazilian Spiritist Federation and Mansão do Caminho. She is a worker at the Spiritist group of Amergues in Porto Alegre, Rio Grande do Sul. So today, Marluce, I would like for us to talk about this idea of embracing unconditional love. We could unpack this topic in many episodes, but let's just go ahead and get started. Just for you, Marluce, we've been in the past few episodes, we've been talking about this amazing parable, the story of the prodigal son. And I would like perhaps for us to take some of the key teachings from that parable because it not only highlights the concept of returning home, right? Physically, spiritually, emotionally, but it also talks about that love that the Father demonstrates. But before we start, because you may not know or may have forgotten about what is the story. I'm going to just tell all of you the parable of the prodigal son, which is the story contained in the Bible written by Luke. It's specifically chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. And it's a story about a younger, well, two children, two sons, right? But a younger son who asks his father for his inheritance before, of course, the father had passed away. And so he seeks for what he would be duly, rightfully receive later in life, but he does that and he leaves and he goes to a distant country, right? And of course, he just uses or misuses the entire inheritance. When he loses everything, he all of a sudden finds himself in this terrible state of poverty, a state of regret. And it is at that point, right, that he realizes, wow, what a mistake I've made. And and I would like to talk about it later with you, Marluce, about the idea of making a mistake, right? What we do with that. But anyways, in the story, this younger son, he's like, what to do? I'm hungry, etc., etc. So he decides at that moment when he's at the dip, the pit of despair, if you will, he decides to return home, and he just hopes with all his heart that he is accepted again as a servant. However, and that's the most beautiful part of the story, his father, right, welcomes him with arms wide open, and he shows this unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, and he even celebrates this his son's return with a feast. Of course, for any story, there has to be a conflict, right? So, meanwhile, while he's getting ready to celebrate the return of his son, the elder son, the older brother, the person who stayed behind, who stayed home, who worked diligently with his father, he now has a whole different set of feelings. He feels resentful, he is jealous, especially about his father celebrating his brother's return. And he confronts the father, and the father explains that the joy in the celebration is due to the son's return from, air quote here, death. He's back to life. And this symbolizes the importance of redemption, the importance of repentance, and of course, unconditional love. This parable, this story that Jesus told and was captured by Luke, is really one story that emphasizes forgiveness, compassion, and of course, this boundless grace from a loving father. So, Malusia, back to you now. If we reflect on this, to me, just an amazing story, this parable of the prodigal son, how could we perhaps interpret Jesus' message, which you find it in Luke, right? When he says, "My kingdom is not of this world." What is he referring to?
Yes, when we are telling this amazing parable, this story, I was thinking about these two sons that are a very good image of the different experience that we face in our lives. Every human being, Joana de Angelis sometimes says, is
Uh-huh.
in universe. But it doesn't matter which path we choose, because each of us has his own path. No matter what path we choose, we have always a lovely Father with an unconditional love to receive us, to accept us. This this image of a loving Father is a new image of God that we can think that when Jesus came, in the time that Jesus came on earth, he changed this paradigm. Can we say that paradigm?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Because before Jesus, we had this image of Yahweh, that was a
Mhm,
God that
mhm.
demanded obedience. He was furious. He demanded sacrifices, and he imposes his law by force. And when Jesus came with this idea that the main thing we should learn is love, he changes completely this image.
Yeah,
And
Lucy, let me, sorry to interrupt, but I just, the person that always comes to my mind when we talk about the true revolutionary impact of Jesus' message, which is that, right? Jesus, for the first time in history, brought the idea to love thy enemy, right? And he it was Joseph Campbell. I don't know if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, but he was a theologian. He studied religion, and he brought forth this, how important that message is: loving the other, loving the unknown, loving the enemy. But go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
no, very good, because it's important to understand and feel this difference. Because
Mhm.
Javé, Jehovah, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, it represents a God that has conducted things with power. And Jesus is the opposite of this. And what is the consequence of this in terms of our inner world? Jesus says you are free to choose what path you want. And I
Mhm.
am patient. I can wait for you to understand life, to understand things. And this parable of the prodigal sons is the story that tells this. No matter how many mistakes we do, we are all loved. We are loved by this lovely this father that accepts us because he has an understanding much more larger of life. Uh,
Yeah.
it's interesting, Marcia, because Jung said that the opposite of love is power.
Yes.
So
And
can
many
say
people, yeah, and many people forget that. People, myself included, right? When we say, what is the opposite of love? And a lot of responses are, it is hatred or even indifference. But Jung says, no, the opposite of love is power. That is great, great that you bring that up because it's important for us to bring that at the forefront of everything we do, right?
yeah, because when we are talking about power, it involves another concept that is the liberty. And
Yes.
when Jesus said, when someone ask for help, right, for Jesus, Jesus always asked before, "What do you want me to do for you?" Demonstrating that you are free to choose what you want. And this is the new kingdom. You are free and you have to discover all the potentials you have that are inside you. I believe in you. I believe you
Yes.
can do choices, you can develop all these potentialities that you have. This parable talks about this, and this kingdom is that we have to find out during all the lives that you have. So this is
Well,
the inner.
yes. So before you talk about it, I just wanted to, for those of us who are here today listening to this podcast, right? From a spiritual concept, and I'm a spiritist. Malus is also a spiritist, right? The core belief in spiritism is that we are immortal souls, and we live one life, really, but many, many different existences. Many people say many lives, but it's really many existence because it's one spirit, one life that it sometimes is here in the material dimension and sometimes only in the spiritual dimension. But that's the amazing consoling message of spiritism that Jesus always brings when he talks about, right? My kingdom is not of this world. But go ahead.
No, it's important because the main idea is this: we are spirits
Yeah.
living a material experience here in this body that we call
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
Uh, when Jesus brings this idea that the kingdom does not belong to this role,
Hmm.
in my point of view, he's saying it's not contained just in this material experience you are having now here, but you have many, many lives, so many opportunities in your life to learn, to develop yourself. And this is a long, long, long way. And I
Yeah.
believe you have conditions. So I do not need to tell you everything, how you have to behave, how you have to do. You are free to choose.
Yeah.
Of
Your
course,
your love is unconditional, right? Meaning that I don't stop loving you if you do A, B, or C. It is transcending all of those conditions, right?
Of course, Marcia, together with this freedom that you have to uh, choose what path you want, it comes with responsibility.
Yeah.
So this is another point, né, that in this spiritist idea is that we are responsible for our own path, for our choices.
Yeah.
And our task here is to be more consciousness of our conditions and make and good choices that helps us in this process that we call evolution. Uh,
Yes.
so thinking about in this parable of the prodigal son, the two sons chose different paths. One decided,
Absolutely. Yeah.
the other one decided to go. So the point is that it doesn't matter what you choose, is how you learn, how you experience this, and to help you mm, uh, to know yourself better, how we face experience that life brings us, to help us to discover this kingdom that is inside us.
Yeah. I see myself often enough as that prodigal son. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was quite young, Marlucy, I left home, right? My home country, our home country, Brazil, and I came to live in the U.S. And it's a very torturous journey, but it took me a long time, a very, very long time to go back home. And
Mm-hmm.
only when I went back home, and it was almost 10 years after I was here, that I could do that full circle, the full circle where you find and you are welcomed by that warm embrace of everything, because that's when we know this is who we are, who I am, right? While I am in this foreign country that is now my second home, um, my true identity, my true sense of belonging is with the family, is where I was born. It is where I was raised. So it's just very interesting. This parable speaks to me and there's so many different levels, right, Lucy? That so many symbolic references to the parable, to the two brothers, the one that leaves and yes, I committed. I made so many mistakes. But I know that if I had stayed, I would also make different, but still mistakes. And even physically speaking, closer to home, I would still need to return home, right?
Yeah. And you know what touches my heart is the son that stays
Yeah.
with. Why? Because we see many people even in our lives. We are many times we are really afraid of life.
Yeah.
So we want to feel secure. We want security.
Yeah.
Many times we are afraid of committing mistakes. So we want to do always everything right. And sometimes we want more than right, we want perfection.
Yeah.
But what is the consequence of this? That we can live a life, a whole life, trying to do everything right, living according the law, but without really feeling in our heart the experience,
Mm-hmm.
connection, without emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people arrive for therapy and they say, well, I work for 30, 40 years
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot remember how was in my youth, what I was doing. I cannot remember the experience I had because we trying to do right, we did we did not involve in emotional terms,
Yeah.
so live a life that apparently, now when
Yeah.
you look outside, it's everything all right, it's perfect. We
Yeah.
work, we had a family, we had children, but without really enter in the experience.
I
So,
even I'm even thinking, I don't know if I'm thinking in the right way, so let me know. When we talk about, of course, the reptilian brain and our need instinctually speaking, actually, to survive, we have response mechanism, right? So it's the three F's. Many people used to say two F's, the fight or flight, and today we call it fight or flight or freeze, the three F's. And if we correlate those response mechanisms to the primal emotional response, fight would be the anger, right? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fight you because you are a threat to my survival. The flight is really the fear-based response where you run away from the situation again because that situation is a threat to all of us. In the freeze, the third, which many animals do, right? They pretend to be dead. The freeze is that paralysis that usually comes with sadness. So back to what you're saying, and I was thinking about it. The younger son, he did not fight the father. There was a some discontent, emotionally speaking, and there is a fleeing of the situation. He runs away to a different country, a distant country, to try to be what he's perhaps unable to be in his father's land. The older son maybe is the one that freezes. He's sad, but he tries, as you're mentioning, to be that perfect child, right? He is respectful, he's obedient, but perhaps there's this sadness into him, or a, I don't know if you agree with me, maybe the sense of I'm repressing, I'm pretending to be dead by repressing all my emotions. And of course, this is, he would need some shadow work to to bring light to what he's repressing. But in the end, he too is not happy. He too needs his father's embrace.
yeah, yes, the point is not specifically the experience. It's not because he stayed at home that his problem is he stayed at home. No, it's the way we face the experience.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
can have he could stay with his father, and
Yeah,
if it was according with his heart, well, this is what my soul needs. That's okay.
yeah,
But many times we do things based because fear is the most primary emotion that we have.
yeah,
So the fear, we will have fear in many moments of our lives, but there is a fear that he, how do we say impede in
that
English?
blocks, that impedes, actually, right? That blocks him to move
Our
forward. Yeah,
development. So
yeah,
there are parts of us, in terms of Jungian psychology, we are
yeah.
not we are not just a block of a personality. No, we have many aspects in our personality that
Mhm.
interact all the time.
Yeah,
So we have one person that is has courage, wants to go to life. There is another one that has a lot of fear, he doesn't want. There is another one that perhaps I could go not so far. So, and our psyche works in this dynamic. So
yeah,
when we have some energy that blocks our movement on life, this is becomes a problem because
yeah,
we have this psychic energy that is like a river,
yeah, yeah,
wants to go to the ocean, and if there is something that blocks this energy, this brings us illness in terms
Yes.
of psychological approach.
Yeah.
So the point is how we face the experience.
Yeah. And if we can keep on in this idea, right? So back to us all being immortal souls living a human experience, and we all fail, right, Lucy? We all live through ups and downs, and yet that vulnerability, that inability to always stay on course, um, growing. We grow through falling apart. Can we maybe talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about how those failures, those experience, like the younger son in the story, can actually shape our consciousness and help us evolve, right? And what I'm thinking here is, how can our mistakes actually lead us to the sense of awakening, the sense of even attaining some wisdom or even self-awareness?
It's a very good reflection, Marcia, because when we talk about failure or mistakes,
Uh-huh.
we always, the first idea that we have most of the time is judgment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do not face experience as part of our life. We always have a moral judgment. And many times this, again, the word impede, blocks
Yeah.
possibility of a large idea of life.
Mhm.
Because in terms of consciousness, I think you have talked about it in other programs.
Mm.
Our consciousness here in this moment that we live in this planet, nah, it we increase our consciousness through the conflict.
Oh,
We
that's
know.
I love it. I love it. So let's just really stop to reflect what you're saying, right? All of us in the audience. So we're talking about consciousness or conscious expansion, right? But it's not just failure, but conflicts. When we are going through some very specific conflict, that it's terrible for the majority of people, right? I hate conflict or conflicting situation, but that's exactly what's going to make us be better. Go ahead, Malusi.
Because in this level of consciousness that we are, we
Yeah,
need good to know about the evil. We need the
yeah,
heart to know about the cold. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
our psychic works through this opposite.
yeah,
So, but with if for example, let's take an example. If we have a conflict with a son, huh? When we put this in terms of judgment, we'll say, this is a very bad thing. I do
yeah.
not want to face it. But when we start changing the question is, what's the purpose? What this conflict one tells about my inner world? Why I feel this as a conflict?
Yeah.
Which part of me feels uncomfortable with this, has
What?
difficult to
Yeah.
talk to, you
What is the
know?
threat, right? What is the threat that somehow I'm perceiving by having this polar opposite for what I want and what I'm getting, for example? Yeah.
Mhm. So, is in terms of our inner world, we know about us when we are in contact with other people. And to be in contact with other people, to be in relationship, it's
Hmm.
natural. Many conflicts will occur because we
Yeah.
are different people. But it depends on what attitude I have.
Yeah.
Example, if we are in a group, it doesn't matter if it's in our work or a home or leisure, and any circumstances. And there
Mhm.
is one person that is difficult for me to deal with.
Yeah.
If we pay attention and we spend, because it takes time to understand our inner world,
Mhm.
what this person speaks about me, why is so uncomfortable.
In
So,
psychological term, it's a projection of myself that I don't want to see it, correct? Yeah.
mhm,
So it's the most difficult thing to do is to look at the person that
mhm,
makes me uncomfortable in this case with loving eyes, because when I love that person, I'm loving myself,
mhm.
right?
So we have to know ourselves. When
Hmm.
we said that we have love the other as we love ourselves, he said,
Yeah,
look at you and pay attention.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
we do not want to face conflict, or because this we spend energy with this.
yeah,
Many times
yeah,
we are we want to solve things rapidly without reflection. It takes time to work this soul making, as there is an Jungian writer named Verena Kast. He uses this express, soul making. This work of soul making means this inner world takes time,
yeah.
many time in reflection.
I love it. So soul making
Yes.
takes time. It's like uh, baking bread, good bread, or having a child. All it takes time. It's not instant, and it's just funny. I'm laughing here because we live in a society of immediate gratification, and we if we think about it, right, Mahlusi, we've never been as good as we are now. And what I'm talking about is we have resources, we have time, we have not only comfort but luxurious comfort, and yet it's not enough. We just want more and more, and that is to have a sense of fulfillment. And Mahlusi, I know what you're thinking. No, that's not the way to get fulfillment. You need to work on that soul making, that it takes a long time, but it's truly fulfilling, right? I wanted to maybe pivot our conversation, if you don't mind, because we were talking about judgment earlier, right? And I think maybe we could talk a little bit about punishment and guilt, and mostly if we talk about what's found in religious dogma, right? And that is passed on to us perhaps with sin, punishment, guilt, and those are all of the things that we find actually we all inherited in traditional religious teachings. How could we shift perhaps to be a more compassionate understanding of this sense of the sacred, the sense of the divine, the sense of spirituality in all of us?
Yeah, all this experience that all of us as humanity
Yeah.
faced, it was very strong. This aspect of punishment, hell, sin, all
Uh-huh.
of in our collective unconsciousness, as Jung said.
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, I think Jesus is very up to date, because he says, well, the message that I brings uh, has nothing to do with guilt, punishment,
Mm-hmm.
sin. The message is about joy, kindness, love, compassion.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a formal religion. This is not a dogma. This is important to separate it, Marcia, because many
Mm-hmm.
people can have a formal spirituality, much connected to a formal religion, but
Yeah.
cannot have it does not mean that this person will have a really a sincere a heart connection with the divine,
Yeah.
and the opposite is true, because you can have a very connected sense of divine without being inserted in a formal
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
religion, you
And we
know.
do need, right? We do need somehow, as we, and I'm speaking really broad here, our entire humanity, if you will, we could move from a quite ritualistic practice to what you're talking about. You're referring to this deeper connection or even a very personal relationship with the divine. I keep thinking here. I I don't know if you know this about me, Mahlusi, but I did go to school for my master's in art history, and I not only studied art history, but I studied medieval art history and specifically early Christians, right? So very interesting. Never worked a day in that field, but it was, it was a big part of my life and my formative thought processes. But one of the things that I had to read, and this is, oh my goodness, too long ago, was the apocryphal Gospel of St. Thomas.
Mhm.
Right. So very interesting because in that gospel, not included in the Bible that we read today, but he brings that idea of a personal relationship with God. And I love it. It's such a strong and, again, perhaps even revolutionary way of thinking as individual souls, right? We all are very unique in our own journeys. And how do we have a very special and important connection with our Father?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, Marcia, we see in the so the formal religions, I think, are very, very important
Mhm.
ritual, but
Yeah.
it's a way to help us to
Mhm.
connect with the divine. But many people think that the rituals and the dogmas and the formal religions are the divine. No, are the ways, paths to arrive.
Like the
And
expression, right? Sorry to interrupt, but it's the expression of how I connect to the divine. Does this make sense? This is
that
how my words here, right? How my religion is the path, as you said, but it also equals my expression of my faith, which is that actually the bond between me and my creator. Uh,
Yes, but every people will feel or it in a different way. I have a
correct.
friend who was
Yeah.
raised Catholic
Hmm.
family,
Hmm.
and since he was very very young, he loved to go to to church, and
Yes.
all the symbols that appears in the Catholic rituals for
Yes.
him has a very deep meaning. And when he talks about it, you feel that for him this has meaning.
Yeah.
And you have another person that will participate in the same ritual, and this doesn't mean anything for this
Yeah,
person.
I have to tell a little bit about myself here. A moment of confession. So maybe when you talk about this person who really drives meaning from, in this case, Catholic, the all the icons and the symbolic elements. I too, I went to. I'm from a Catholic family. I went to Catholic schools, etc., etc. I wanted to be a nun growing up, by the way, and there was a sense of such peace going to church, right? And then I broke up with God. I'm like, no more. I don't want to talk to you. And so this is the linear. sequence of events, right? So very, very Catholic, and then I break up with God, and then I start to study art history. So in my studies of art history, I had to read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Quran, read the Bhagavad Gita. I read so many sacred texts because it was part of history of art, how to pictorially or sculpturally, etc., talk about the content of those texts. But anyways, in the midst of this, Barlusi, this is, I'm embarrassed and laughing at the same time, but I was still broken up with God. And I went to Italy. I spent a month there. It was a part of a residency for my school. And I go to St. Peter's. And you're gonna laugh because it's still vivid, right? I go to St. Peter's and I go to mass on a Sunday, and it's the whole spectacle. They had three different children's choir singing beautifully, and they I think I may be exaggerating, but this is what brings to my memory because this was a long time ago. I would say uh, 20 cardinals and priests from everywhere in the world, and there is this enormous incense going through, right, as they come. And I'm looking at all of it, and it was just most magnificent moment of my life, and all I can think of is pure theater. I discounted all the symbolic element of each attribute of that moment. I dismissed it, I discounted, I rationalized with this is theater, this is manipulation, this is I said all of it. And then I sit down, and it was quite beautiful moment because we had a priest from different countries speaking in different languages a little
Mm.
bit. And after three, four, five, there comes this man from Africa, this priest, and he speaks not in Italian, not in Latin. He speaks in Portuguese, our native tongue, right? And right in that moment, I boohoo cried. I broke down, and all of it, all of that energy, the psychosphere, all of the connection to the sacred just embraced me. And I broke down. And from that moment, my faith was restored.
It shows us that divine is everywhere.
Yes, yes.
I
Formally or
love
not, right? Formally or not, but it's there, the connection.
yes. No, the divine is in nature, is in our daily experience. It's
Uh-huh.
but we have to be sensible to perceive it, to feel it. I
Yeah,
love poet Rumi. I don't know if you
I
read
do.
Rumi.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
all his poetry is about this connection with the beloved, as he calls God.
Hmm.
And one poem that he says, "I am at home wherever I am." And this home that Rumi refers is the contact with the divine.
Ah,
Because and this is the love message of Jesus. So he says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to
yeah,
God what belongs to God. It means that you have many levels of conscience in your existence, and we have this spiritual aspect of our life that we forget because we are we put much focus on this material
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
So we have
Unfortunately, yeah,
an amazing world with everything, with all this progress that you are talking about, and on the other hand we have a human being empty inside, and we have depression, panic, anxiety. How do you say? Ansiedade.
Anxiety. Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
all this because we
Yeah.
lost this connection.
It's all about love and it's all about connection.
Yes.
Mahlusi, you're going to be surprised, but we are at time. I love our conversation, but I wanted to just bring it back to all of us because today in our conversation we talked about the importance of, I guess, surrendering to love, right? Embracing love as we journey back home, however long the journey is. And we also talked a little bit about the power of unconditional love and even the psychological aspects of healing and quite honestly, the ultimate path to joy and self-fulfillment is when we are back home, right? But Malusi, before we close today, maybe you want to share some final thoughts or message. For example, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in the past and struggling to find the courage to return to their true self?
We should not fear life. Nah. Jesus said another, I would like to finish with this. I came there for you to have life and life in abundance. Yes,
Hmm.
did I say this?
Yeah.
What does it mean? To live
Hmm.
our life in a whole.
Yeah.
So we should not fear because we are really, really loved by Him, but we do not believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This all our fears, our guilt, everything we carry in our heart, we are very, very loved by Him, and we should believe in it.
Yeah.
So, not fear life. Life is an amazing experience, opportunity that we have to find out this all the potentials that we have in our spirit, in our soul, and
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think one challenge, Marcia, that we face in this moment is we are afraid of our feelings to get in contact with this inner reality, and we should not, because this life in abundance that Jesus talks is to live our life as a whole
Yeah.
and embrace everything that we have,
Yeah.
problems, sorrows, everything.
Yeah.
Because the loving logic that Jesus brings is everything is connected, everything has a purpose, and we are not alone, never.
Yeah. We're loved, we're not alone, and everything has a purpose. Love it. I want to say thank you. Thank you, my Lucy, for your insights. Thank you for all of you who are here, who turned in to listen to this episode. And for all of us, perhaps, who joined this conversation, I would like to leave a thought, right? How can we all, you, me, Mahlusi, all of us, how can we all begin to practice not just unconditional love, but forgiveness, both toward ourselves and toward the other in our day-to-day love lives? Be embrace the idea that Jesus brought to love thy enemy. But this is fun to talk, but you may not have been with us before, and if this is the first time you are listening to a program, please take a note that the psychology and spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis, and we do hope you were able to perhaps expand your own spirituality concepts by juxtaposing them in this psychological lens. We also want to thank our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil, the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. We'll be back next week with another episode, so stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, and bye bye.